Ever wonder what happens when celebrities take their final breath far from home? Did you know some of the most influential people in history drew their last breath in foreign lands? Number 10. Anthony Bourdain. Who hasn't felt the wanderlust that Anthony Bourdain embodied? The celebrated chef, author, and television personality captivated audiences worldwide with his raw, unfiltered exploration of global cuisines and cultures. Bourdain traveled to the farthest reaches of the planet, from bustling metropolitan cities to remote villages, all while bringing viewers along for the journey through his shows No Reservations and Parts Unknown. But on June 8, 2018, the world received shocking news. Bourdain, age 61, was found dead in his hotel room in Kaysersberg, France. He had been in the picturesque Alsatian town filming an episode of Parts Unknown with his friend and fellow chef Eric Reipert. The medical examiner determined that Bourdain had taken his own life. The news sent ripples of grief throughout the culinary world and beyond. CNN, the network that aired Parts Unknown, issued a statement describing Bourdain as a unique storyteller whose love of great adventure, new friends, fine food and drink, and the remarkable stories of the world made him a unique storyteller. Former President Barack Obama, who had famously shared a meal with Bourdain in Vietnam, remembered him as someone who taught us about food, but more importantly, about its ability to bring us together. Bourdain's death in France, a country whose cuisine he deeply admired, came as a profound shock to fans who had followed his global adventures for years. In the days following his passing, makeshift memorials appeared outside restaurants where he had dined, and tributes poured in from chefs, celebrities, and everyday fans whose lives he had touched through his work. Number 9. Heath Ledger. Do actors sometimes become too deeply immersed in their roles? Heath Ledger was an Australian actor at the height of his career when tragedy struck. Known for his versatility and intense commitment to his craft, Ledger had recently completed filming his iconic role as the Joker in The Dark Knight, a performance that would later earn him a posthumous Academy Award. On January 22, 2008, Ledger was found unconscious in his apartment in the Soho neighborhood of Manhattan. He was just 28 years old. The official cause of death was determined to be an accidental overdose of prescription medications. Though not his home country, Ledger had been living in New York while working on his final film, The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. News of Ledger's death shocked Hollywood and fans worldwide. Many speculated that the psychological toll of portraying the Joker had contributed to his insomnia and subsequent reliance on sleeping pills. His father, Kim Ledger, later revealed that his son had been taking various medications to combat pneumonia, insomnia, and anxiety. The aftermath of Ledger's death saw an outpouring of tributes from fellow actors and directors. His former partner and mother of his daughter, Michelle Williams, was devastated by the loss. A private funeral was held in his hometown of Perth, Australia, where family, friends, and fellow Australian actors gathered to honor his memory. Ledger's legacy lives on not only through his daughter, Matilda Rose, but also through the Heath Ledger Scholarship, established to support emerging Australian actors in pursuing international careers. Despite dying far from his Australian homeland, Ledger's impact on cinema remains indelible, with his portrayal of the Joker frequently cited as one of the greatest performances in film history. Number 8. Princess Diana. Can royalty escape tragedy, even in the most romantic city in the world? Princess Diana, once described as the most photographed woman in the world, captivated global attention from the moment she entered the royal spotlight. Her marriage to Prince Charles, subsequent divorce, and humanitarian work made her both a royal figure and a global icon. On August 31, 1997, Diana and her companion Dodi Fayed left the Ritz Hotel in Paris after dinner. As their Mercedes sped through the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, pursued by paparazzi on motorcycles, the driver lost control. The resulting crash killed Diana, Fayed, and the driver, Henry Paul. Only Diana's bodyguard, Trevor Rees-Jones, survived, though with serious injuries. Diana, 36, was rushed to the Pitié-Salpêtrière hospital, where doctors performed emergency surgery, but the internal injuries were too severe. She was pronounced dead in the early hours of the morning. The news broke worldwide, triggering an unprecedented outpouring of public grief. The circumstances surrounding the crash sparked controversy and conspiracy theories. Investigations concluded that Henry Paul was intoxicated and driving at excessive speed. The pursuing paparazzi were initially blamed, though a French investigation later cleared them of direct responsibility. The lack of seatbelts was also cited as a contributing factor to the fatalities. Diana's funeral at Westminster Abbey was watched by an estimated 2.5 billion people worldwide. The image of young Princes William and Harry walking behind their mother's coffin became one of the most heartbreaking symbols of that period. Outside Kensington Palace, mourners created a vast sea of flowers, notes, and tributes that grew daily. Diana's death in Paris, far from her home in England, added another layer of tragedy to the event. The tunnel where the crash occurred has become an unofficial memorial site, with visitors leaving tributes and messages. A flame-gilded monument, the Flame of Liberty, located above the tunnel, has become an unofficial Diana memorial, though it was originally installed to commemorate Franco-American friendship. Number 7. John Lennon. How does a peaceful evening at home turn into one of music history's darkest moments? John Lennon, the legendary co-founder of the Beatles, had settled into a relatively quiet life in New York City with his wife Yoko Ono and their son Sean. After a 5-year hiatus from the music industry, Lennon had just released the album Double Fantasy and was enthusiastic about his creative rebirth. On December 8, 1980, Lennon and Ono returned to their apartment at the Dakota after a recording session. As they walked toward the entrance, Mark David Chapman, who had asked for Lennon's autograph earlier that day, fired 5 shots at the musician. 4 bullets struck Lennon in the back and shoulder. Police officers immediately rushed him to Roosevelt Hospital, but the wounds were fatal. Lennon was pronounced dead on arrival at 11:07 p.m. He was 40 years old. News of Lennon's death spread rapidly around the world. Impromptu gatherings formed in cities globally, with fans holding vigils and singing Beatles songs in tribute. Outside the Dakota and in nearby Central Park, later designated as Strawberry Fields, thousands gathered to mourn. The shock was particularly profound because Lennon had been killed not during the tumultuous 1960s, but in a period when he seemed to have found peace in his personal life. Lennon's death in New York, far from his Liverpool, England birthplace, reflected his complex relationship with his homeland. He had moved to New York in 1971, embracing the city and its energy. Though he faced deportation efforts during the Nixon administration due to his political activism, Lennon had finally received his green card in 1976, allowing him to put down roots in his adopted city. His murder prompted global discussions about gun control, celebrity obsession, and mental health. Chapman, who remained at the scene until police arrived, later admitted he was seeking notoriety through the killing. He was sentenced to 20 years to life in prison and has been denied parole multiple times. Number 6. Ernest Hemingway. Can the beauty of Idaho hide the depths of personal despair? Ernest Hemingway, the Nobel Prize-winning author known for his terse, powerful prose and adventurous lifestyle, had traveled the world extensively throughout his career. His experiences in World War I, the Spanish Civil War, and his time living in Paris, Cuba, and Kenya all informed his writing and public persona. In his later years, Hemingway settled in Ketchum, Idaho, seeking peace and a place to write. However, his physical and mental health had begun to deteriorate significantly. He had survived 2 plane crashes in Africa in 1954, leaving him with serious injuries that plagued him for the remainder of his life. Additionally, he struggled with depression, alcoholism, and what may have been bipolar disorder or traumatic brain injury. On July 2, 1961, Hemingway rose early at his Idaho home. He took a shotgun from the basement, went upstairs, and ended his life. He was 61 years old. While Idaho wasn't foreign in the international sense, it represented a significant geographic and spiritual distance from the places most associated with Hemingway's legendary life. the cafes of Paris, the bullfighting rings of Spain, and the Gulf Stream waters he fished off Cuba. The news of Hemingway's suicide shocked the literary world, though those close to him had grown increasingly concerned about his mental state. He had received electroconvulsive therapy at the Mayo Clinic for depression and paranoia, treatments that he claimed destroyed his memory and ability to write. Hemingway's death sparked conversations about mental health that continue today. His family history revealed a pattern of suicides. His father, brother, sister, and later his granddaughter Margox all took their own lives. This tragic legacy has led to speculation about genetic predisposition to depression and suicidal tendencies. Despite dying far from the European and African landscapes that defined much of his writing life, Hemingway's Idaho grave site has become a pilgrimage destination for literary fans. His final home is now preserved as a writer's retreat and museum, maintaining his connection to the serene mountain landscape that both comforted and isolated him in his final days. Number 5. Bob Marley. How can a small melanoma lead to the death of a global music icon? Bob Marley, the revolutionary reggae musician whose message of peace, unity, and resistance resonated worldwide, had risen from the poverty of Trenchtown, Jamaica, to international superstardom. His music transcended cultural boundaries, making him not just a musician but a spiritual figure to many. In July 1977, Marley discovered a type of malignant melanoma under his toenail. Doctors recommended amputation of the toe, but Marley refused the procedure, citing his Rastafarian beliefs which prohibited cutting the flesh. Instead, he had the nail and nail bed removed and continued performing. By 1980, Marley's cancer had spread throughout his body. After a show in Pittsburgh during his tour for the album Uprising, he collapsed while jogging in Central Park. His health deteriorated rapidly. He performed his final concert in Pittsburgh on September 23, 1980. As his condition worsened, Marley sought treatment at the Bavarian clinic of controversial physician Joseph Issels, known for his alternative cancer therapies. Despite 8 months of treatment in Germany, Marley's cancer continued to spread. When it became clear that the treatment was not working, Marley attempted to return to his beloved Jamaica but became too ill during the journey. On May 11, 1981, Bob Marley died at the Cedars of Lebanon Hospital in Miami, Florida, at the age of 36. His final words to his son Ziggy were reported to be, "Money can't buy life." Marley's death in Miami as he tried to return home to Jamaica added a poignant note to his passing. The man who had sung so passionately about his homeland and African roots drew his last breath in America. His body was flown back to Jamaica, where he received a state funeral on May 21, 1981, that combined elements of Ethiopian Orthodox and Rastafarian traditions. Marley's final resting place is a mausoleum in 9 Mile, the village of his birth in St. Ann Parish, Jamaica. His guitar was buried with him. The anniversary of his death is commemorated worldwide, particularly in Ethiopia, where Rastafarians consider him a religious figure, and in Jamaica, where his cultural impact remains immeasurable. Number 4. Freddie Mercury. When does a performer know it's time to tell the world goodbye? Freddie Mercury, the flamboyant frontman of Queen, possessed one of the most distinctive voices in rock history and an unparalleled stage presence. Born Farrokh Bulsara in Zanzibar, now part of Tanzania, and raised partly in India, Mercury had already lived in multiple countries before finding fame with Queen in England. By the late 1980s, rumors about Mercury's health had begun to circulate in the press. Though he maintained his privacy, his appearance had noticeably changed, and his public appearances became increasingly rare. Unknown to the public, Mercury had been diagnosed with AIDS in 1987, at a time when the disease carried significant stigma and had no effective treatments. Mercury continued to record with Queen, creating music for the albums The Miracle and Innuendo, even as his health declined. The video for These Are the Days of Our Lives, filmed in May 1991, would be his final appearance on camera, showing a visibly thin Mercury still performing with passion. On November 23, 1991, Mercury issued a public statement confirming he had AIDS. Just over 24 hours later, on the evening of November 24th, he died at his home in Kensington, London, from bronchial pneumonia resulting from AIDS. He was 45 years old. While London had been Mercury's home for most of his adult life, his death far from his birthplace of Zanzibar added a dimension of geographic displacement to his story. Mercury's Zoroastrian funeral was conducted by a Zoroastrian priest, honoring his Parsi heritage, though the exact location of his ashes has never been publicly disclosed, in accordance with his wishes. The timing of Mercury's death, coming so soon after his public acknowledgement of his illness, heightened the emotional impact. His passing became a pivotal moment in raising awareness about AIDS. The following year, the remaining members of Queen organized the Freddie Mercury tribute concert for AIDS awareness, which was broadcast to an audience of up to 1 billion people across 76 countries. Mercury's legacy transcends his death, with Queen's music remaining wildly popular decades later. The 2018 biopic Bohemian Rhapsody introduced a new generation to Mercury's extraordinary talent and complex life story, including his multicultural background and his final years battling a disease that claimed millions of lives worldwide. Number 3. Natasha Richardson. Can a seemingly minor skiing accident turn fatal in a matter of hours? Natasha Richardson, the Tony Award-winning actress and member of the illustrious Redgrave acting family, had built a successful career on both stage and screen. Married to actor Liam Neeson, she balanced her professional life with raising their 2 sons. In March 2009, Richardson was taking a beginner skiing lesson at the Mont Tremblant Resort in Quebec, Canada. During the lesson, she fell and hit her head. The impact seemed minor at first. She was not wearing a helmet, but was able to laugh about the fall and refused medical attention twice, saying she felt fine. About an hour later, Richardson began experiencing a severe headache. Her condition rapidly deteriorated, and she was taken first to a local hospital and then transferred to Sacré-Cœur Hospital in Montreal. The next day, she was flown to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York City, where she died on March 18, 2009, at the age of 45. The cause of death was determined to be an epidural hematoma due to blunt impact to the head. Richardson's death in Canada while on what was meant to be a carefree ski vacation stunned the entertainment world. What made her case particularly tragic was the likely preventability of her death. Medical experts suggested that had she received immediate treatment after the fall, her life might have been saved. Her case brought renewed attention to the importance of seeking medical attention after any head injury, regardless of how minor it initially seems, and to the potential benefits of wearing helmets during winter sports. Following her death, Richardson's family honored her wishes as an organ donor. Her husband, Liam Neeson, later revealed that Richardson's donated organs had saved the lives of 3 people. The family established a foundation in her name to finance brain injury research and help raise awareness about safety measures for preventing such injuries. The theatrical community mourned deeply, with Broadway dimming its lights in her honor. Richardson was buried near her family's estate in Millbrook, New York. Though she died in Canada, she was deeply connected to the United States and United Kingdom through her work and family ties. Her death highlighted the unpredictable nature of brain injuries and emphasized how quickly a seemingly minor accident can become life-threatening. Number 2. James Dean. How does a young actor's passion become his final scene? James Dean, the epitome of rebellious youth in 1950s American cinema, had just completed filming Giant, his 3rd major film role. At 24, Dean had already established himself as one of Hollywood's most promising talents with his performances in East of Eden and Rebel Without a Cause. Dean was also an enthusiast of auto racing, a hobby his studio had previously restricted during filming. On September 30, 1955, Dean was driving his new Porsche 550 Spyder, nicknamed Little Bastard, to a racing event in Salinas, California. With him was Rolf Wutherich, his mechanic and racing team partner. Earlier that day, actor Alec Guinness had allegedly warned Dean that the car looked sinister and told him he would be dead within a week if he drove it. At approximately 5:45 p.m. at the junction of California State Route 46 and Route 41 near Chalmette, California, Dean's Porsche collided with a Ford Tudor driven by 23-year-old Donald Turnipseed. The Ford had been turning at the intersection, and Dean couldn't stop in time. The crash was devastating. Dean suffered a broken neck and numerous internal and external injuries. He was pronounced dead on arrival at Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital. While California wasn't foreign territory to Dean, who was born in Indiana, the remote highway where he died was far from both his Midwestern roots and the Hollywood that had made him famous. The rural crossroads, later renamed the James Dean Memorial Junction, became an immediate pilgrimage site for fans. Dean's death created the template for the modern celebrity death, sudden, tragic, and freezing the star in perpetual youth. The fact that he died behind the wheel after completing just 3 films, only one of which, East of Eden, had been released at the time of his death, cemented his legacy as cinema's original rebel. His famous quote, "Live fast, die young, leave a beautiful corpse," proved eerily prophetic. What followed was an unprecedented phenomenon of posthumous fame. Both Rebel Without a Cause and Giant were released after his death, with the former turning him into a cultural icon that represented the frustrations and desires of American youth. Dean became the first actor to receive a posthumous Academy Award nomination for East of Eden, and later received a second posthumous nomination for Giant. The twisted metal of Dean's Porsche became a macabre attraction, touring the United States as a highway safety exhibit. Parts of the vehicle have since disappeared under mysterious circumstances, fueling legends about a curse associated with the car. Today, a modest monument marks the site of Dean's fatal crash, far from both his Indiana birthplace and his Hollywood grave at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. Number 1. Michael Jackson. Could the King of Pop have been saved? Michael Jackson, one of the most significant cultural figures of the 20th century, had transformed popular music and dance while living under the intense scrutiny of global fame since childhood. After years of relative seclusion, Jackson was preparing for a series of comeback concerts titled This Is It at London's O2 Arena. On June 25, 2009, Jackson was found unresponsive in his rented mansion in the Holmby Hills neighborhood of Los Angeles. His personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, had administered propofol, lorazepam, and midazolam to help Jackson sleep. After discovering Jackson wasn't breathing, Murray attempted CPR but delayed calling emergency services. Paramedics arrived and performed CPR for 42 minutes before transporting Jackson to Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead at age 50. The Los Angeles County coroner ruled Jackson's death a homicide, determining that he died from a combination of drugs in his body, with propofol and benzodiazepines being the primary substances. Conrad Murray was later convicted of involuntary manslaughter and served 2 years of a 4-year sentence. The news of Jackson's death triggered unprecedented global mourning. Website traffic spiked so dramatically that several major sites and search engines experienced outages. In the days following his death, Jackson dominated social media conversation, with his name accounting for 30% of all Twitter messages. Jackson's memorial service at the Staples Center in Los Angeles was watched by an estimated billion people worldwide. His gold-plated casket was present during the ceremony, which featured tributes from family members and fellow celebrities including Stevie Wonder, Mariah Carey, and Lionel Richie. While Los Angeles wasn't foreign territory to Jackson, who had lived in various California locations throughout his career, his death occurred during preparations to leave for London, adding a transitional element to the tragedy. Jackson was ultimately laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California, after a private ceremony attended by family and close friends. The circumstances surrounding Jackson's death led to broader discussions about prescription drug use, doctor-patient relationships, and the pressures of celebrity. Jackson's death also sparked a reevaluation of his musical legacy, with his albums returning to the charts and new generations discovering his work through the documentary This Is It, compiled from rehearsal footage for the concerts that never took place. Ever wonder why we're so fascinated by celebrity deaths in foreign lands? Does the distance from home somehow make these tragedies even more poignant?